Alright, welcome back to Pikmin. We've reached sub-level 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Should be the bottom now. Final floor. That was some good boss startup music.
Oh, poopy. There seems to be a guy here. Seems to also be a lack of picklemans.
Come to me, my Pikmins. We have much to fight over. Hopefully I do not kill all my Pikmin. This is a, this is some sort of beetle bug thingy, like the thing. Kinda wanted to wake up before okay, here's its head over here.
There you are.
So this must be some sort of fatty bulb orb. Yep, all those Pikmin are dead. Great.
Yep, they're all dead.
So now I only 10. I managed for my 10 Pikmins to survive. And we have officially defeated the bulb orb. The mama bulb orb, I'm sure. This one has a love tester.
I picked up the Louie store tester. How bizarre, this device is emitting black light. It must have ingested that by the creature. But an absolutely repulsive life form. Our return to Holokite cannot come soon enough.
Also, you're going to spend the rest of this level and probably tomorrow recollecting all of your Pikmin. Congratulations, Chris. Maybe you saved some purple ones so that you won't feel so sad. Yeah, looks like I have a couple purple ones, but they're mostly red. It was not a very good showing by Christopher. About half and half. Looks like half of them are black and half of them are purple and half of them are red. So I decided to do something a bit silly. I don't know if you really want to call it silly. And then, last year, 2023, or 2 years ago, I guess, 2023, I read through the entirety of the Bible, starting page 1, chapter 1. I read it all the way to the very end in 1 year.
The prototype detector. Seems to react when it approaches treasure. Connected to my radar. Processing complete. The treasure gather gauge is now fully operational. Will appear on your monitor. Will move right as you approach the treasure.
Why do they give you this?
Let's go.
Because there's hidden treasures in the game that need to be unearthed. Anyways.
Tell me there's treasure over here? No, there's no treasure. Alright, let's escape with the Pokemons. I mean Pikmins up to the top. Holy shit! We did it.
We defeated the big boss. And got another 1,000 gold.
Cave completed, however we lost 77 Pikmin in doing so. Very terrible. Very terrible. Cave to be saved. Awakened wood. We shall awaken to the woods.
They don't look very happy with themselves. I'm not very happy with myself either.
20% of debt recovered, yeah.
That puts us just over. Well, probably doesn't put us at a quarter done with this game. So I have to imagine, based on the amount of money we've made so far, we're probably maybe about 10% to 15% done with this game. But who knows? Anyways, what I was saying earlier was I decided that I was going to do that silly thing, and I went out, as I have just my regular Good News Bible, which was given to me when I was in CCD, Catechism, if you will. Decided to go and buy a different Bible. They call a study Bible. Now, there's a number of different study Bibles, including ones that give you space in the margins to write notes and thoughts and, you know, underline and blah, 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 blah. Well, I decided to buy, instead of doing something like that, I decided, let's buy a what they call a study Bible, which would be where you have, you know, the word, and then below that you have some interpretation, some, you know, what do you call that, guidance as to what's being said, why is this the way it is. I have not actually I've opened the book just briefly because they have a, I don't want to say a long introduction, but they sort of have, you know, an introduction. It explains how the book was made, what translation they're using, why they chose to use that translation over another one, and you know, I was also interested in getting sort of a different translation over the one that I have. Not that I've memorized my Bible, the one that I have, or have had for umpty years. But sort of just to get an idea of, you know, okay, so you've read through it, and you know what it says in the book, okay? And now let's look at a different translation, okay? And what does this translation say that's different than the one that you read? And, you know, there's a lot of things that can be that basically can mean the same thing, but come off in different ways. Or conversely, you could have that same feeling where, you know, you say, you know, Olimar woke up this morning, or Olimar arose from his ship. And, you know, you could technically look at those in slightly different ways and go, okay, well, awoken versus arose, you know, those can have different connotations, particularly if you're talking the way you choose to use words in an overall storyline. You know, to wake up to versus, you know, rise. You know, there's definitely some symbolism, some importance that can be pulled from, you know, a different choice of words, particularly if you're looking at the overall arcing story of a text. So, in a way, what I'm trying to say is you can get different insights by just using slightly different words, or it can build on an overall theme a little bit better than, say, a different translation does. And some translations try to give you the best translation, i.e., if I were to take a ancient book and I were to say, yeah, I don't have anything to take on this door still yet. But if I were to say, I wanted to translate a book, whether that be from, you know, Middle English, Old English, you know, a language that I can recognize, though is a little bit distant from our current version of the language. Beowulf being an example of that, which is in Old English, or even, you know, sometimes people will actually translate some Shakespeare stuff to make it more of that level where everything is the same. You know, like you're basically talking in not necessarily 2025 slang talk, because I don't need Romeo coming out and telling Juliet, you know, that he thinks
their family is kind of mid, you know, or you know that you know the Capulets think that you know the Montagues are Ohio. Not that ad level, okay, but like normal, regular, everyday spoken English. That, you know, in 5 years we won't go, I can't believe they use the word Ohio there, that's so old. Or even a year from now, probably. But sort of what I'm trying to get at is if I were to translate it, am I translating it based on my interpretation of it, trying to accomplish the best way of explaining it, or should I take Shakespeare's words, word for word, and try to more or less translate them one-to-one from not only his original text, but his original meaning? And the Bible tends to be a sort of a... I don't know if a hard example is, I mean, the concept that the Bible is the Word of God, okay, is where you say, you know, God inspired this writer to write this book, okay? And so he wrote this book as God told him to write this book. So, of course, when you're going from Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic or Latin, you want to try to get it into English or whatever language you're translating into the most accurate you possibly can, because at the end of the day, you don't want to blaspheme, you don't want to basically put in your interpretation of the word, but to put the word as it is, and either to take, again, like I said, the translation, read it over, and rewrite it in today's English, or to try to translate it word for word as close as you can get from the traditional Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew. But again, sort of like trying to translate Chaucer, trying to translate Beowulf, you're talking about a language that has long since existed and it evolved or disappeared and came back. So we're translating it based on our best understanding of how that language worked at that time period, or how it's currently translated into today's Greek, Latin. Well, there's no real Latin anymore, that's a dead language, but into today's Greek or Hebrew. In some ways, the message is the most important part. And I understand we want to try to get as close as possible to the true message, but sometimes the overall message or story is more important. A magical spaceship flies into the sky again. Today's report, we earned a bunch of fucking horse shit. We doubled our funds. We do that every day, everything will be great. However, I went from 110 Pikmin down to 58, which ain't great. Mailman, dearest dear, how are you? Your boss gave me a special email account and told me all about your business trip. Just remember you have a family to think about. Thanks, honey, Miss Pikmin. Miss Olimar. I definitely don't think about you and the dirty pictures you've been sending me all of this time. I wish that I was home. Not pulling my company out of bankruptcy. We're gonna land in this area. I literally just came back to planet Holokite after obviously having at least enough ship parts to make my all the way back to Holokite, ignoring the fact that getting your piggy bank back is canon or not. Let's just pretend you were able to accomplish your entirety of your mission. You got all of your ship parts back, not just to fly you back to Holokite, but you also got your piggy bank back, which is the last sort of unnecessary item. It's a bit optional. If you're Almar, you don't want to leave your money behind. I get that. But if you have a choice between running out of oxygen or whatever they breathe, they don't breathe oxygen because oxygen is poisonous to the Pikmin. Not the Pikmin, the holokites. Or not, you're gonna want to get your money back. You want to get your piggy bank back, your wallet, whatever. But if I have to choose between all the money in my bank and living, I think I would probably choose living. Because I can make my money back. I don't like losing whatever amount of money I've stored up in my bank. A couple thousand, maybe about $10,000. If you include even stocks and bonds, it's probably higher than that. But does my life end? You know, provided I have a job when I get back to Holokite and don't find out that, you know, the entire value of money's changed. No, I'm good. As long as I have my life, I can continue to make money, I can get a job, whatever. Make money for my family, support myself, recoup the losses I made. I lost, I mean. Let's just pretend for a second you're Olimar. You've barely survived. You give 30 days on the planet Earth, or whatever they call this in this universe, and now you've returned to Holokite. You've got everything, including your piggy bank, and maybe you made it with just by the skin of your teeth. Maybe you made it by with 15 days to spare. I don't know. You know, it depends on how smart and awesome Olimar is in your version. But you get back home, you land your ship, and your boss tells you, pick carrots got eaten. There was a monstrous rabbit that tricked Louie into giving up all his pick carrots. Company's bankrupt. We're taking your ship and anything else of value that's on it. And now you have to remake all this money. So, after just barely surviving, after 30 Earth calendar days, and however long it took to get back to his home planet, you're then forced to turn around, come back to this world, where now you're discovering new Pikmin species, as well as new obstacles that require, say, purple Pikmin to fucking land on paper bags because they weigh whatever, twice, 3 times the amount of our traditional Pikmin. I think I'm gonna be about, let's say about 30 short. That's my guess. I am about 35 short. Alright, so I need to gather up more Pikmin. So 35 is not impossible for me to do, but I'm pretty sure I can only get about 35 more in total. Oh, and I guess I could pick these Pikmin as well, which count against my total. So maybe I can do this without much worry. I'm just thinking that maybe I don't have enough purple Pikmin to get the amount of weight I need to knock the bag down, but it does look like I have. If I gather up another, say, 25 to 30 red Pikmin, we should be good. Also, got some guys to kill. Black, turn them into Pikmin. Got that. They can be turned into a Pikmin. Yeah, so we're gonna waste most, if not all, of day 5 just trying to recuperate our Pikmin. So I'm guessing probably just like in the first game, the starting area would have been the smarter area to try to gather Pikmin from, instead of trying to, I don't necessarily want to say force my way through this portion, but I don't necessarily believe that this stage is going to be the most efficient for recapping my, or accumulating Pikmin. However, this does look like a good area for green Pikmin to turn into flower Pikmin.